Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor of Madison365, with your daily updates on the news of the day. Mostly coronavirus today, as is mostly usually the case. It is Monday, September 7th, Labor Day. I hope you're enjoying your day off if you're able to have it off. Our coronavirus news today continues to be not very good. As I've mentioned before, public health people will tell you that 10% is kind of a threshold when it comes to the percentage of tests that are reported positive. Going strictly by number of new coronavirus cases per day as a meaningful metric is limited because it's so heavily dependent upon testing. Today, we could say, boy, we improved a lot today because we only had 567 new cases, whereas we had 893 yesterday. We had, 1,500 on Friday, whatever it was. However, that's can't do that because one of the reasons we had only 567 test cases today is we only had 5,400 tests. And when you have a lower number of tests, but still a relatively high number of cases, that means your positive test rate is on the high side. So today, our positive test rate just for today is 10.37%. Now, you also don't want to look at any one particular day because there could be a data anomaly. There could be some negative tests that haven't been reported yet. There might be just a weird cluster that was identified that is throwing the data off. So you do want to look also at a 7-day and a 14-day average. Or not even an average, just a positive test rate over the past 7 and 14 days. Unfortunately, our 7-day positive test rate is now 11%, and our 14-day is 9.6%. Now, as I was starting to get at before I got sidetracked, 10% is kind of a threshold. Public health people will tell you that if you're looking at positive test rate, you really, if it's more than 10%, that means you really don't have the spread under control. That if you're, between like 3 and 10%, that means you still have pretty significant community spread, but at least you have it more or less kind of mitigated, and it's basically slow. If you can stay under 3%, that means you're really suppressing it, that you're really beating it, that you're really in the stage of basically snuffing out the last of your cases. That's where we were in June. We weren't quite there in June. We were right around 4 or 5% most of June. But there were days in June when we were under 3%, which was great. And now we're at 16% on Saturday. We were about 12% yesterday. And we are at a little over 10% today, which puts us at 11% for the week, which is not good news. We are now at 81,760 total cases. No new deaths today, which is good, although take that with a grain of salt because fatalities typically aren't reported on the weekends, and it's a holiday today. So there's a reasonable chance that tomorrow or Wednesday we'll get a large number of deaths reported that have been happening over this weekend, over the past 4 or 5 days, and they just aren't being reported yet. So, well, it's good that we don't have any new deaths to report. We always just be wary that there probably are some that we just haven't been reported yet. In terms of number of cases, 7-day average is now 880, and 14-day average is now 790. Both of those numbers, no, I should say the 7-day number is higher. The 14-day number is slightly lower than yesterday. Um, our death, our fatality average is down slightly. We're now at 6.7 deaths per day over the past week, 5.7 over the past 2 weeks. Again, those might be slightly impacted by the fact that we have a 3-day weekend here where like coroners and stuff aren't reporting deaths to the state. But that's right. The numbers will all even out in time. Dane County today is again for the third day in a row the highest new case count. What I'm seeing is a change, a slight change in where the hotspots are. Kenosha County and Racine County, which were very hot and very high recently, have been much lower lately, which is good. Milwaukee County has cooled off just in the past 4 or 5 days. Dane County, on the other hand, is going crazy. And we're seeing a couple other sort of rural counties that haven't made the list before looking kind of bad. For example, Greene County, just to the south of Dane County, is one that we don't really see on this list very often. On my daily, here are where the bad places are. But we'll see. We've seen Greene County today. Greene County has 20 new cases today. It looks like. Oh, sorry. I'm just realizing that my notes here that I'm using do not have the most up to date figures. That I sort of, I don't know how I got my notes like half done before I came on here. Sorry, I apologize. 14 new cases today. Sorry, in Greene County. And 8.75% positive test there, which is not as bad as the state. But it's a rural county. You don't expect to see a lot of cases or high test counts in rural counties. We've seen Grant County on here a few times. Grant County is not on the list today, but we have seen Grant County, which is a very rural county, on here a few times. But again, Sheboygan, Manitowoc, Racine, Kenosha are all off my list today. But we do have a couple, a few spots to note. Brown County at about 20% today. Calumet County, 24%. Again, leading the way, Dane County with 90 new cases today. A significant portion of which are University of Wisconsin related. I'm going to come back and talk about UW in just a minute because there's kind of a lot to talk about there. Eau Claire is at 20%. Eau Claire County, I should say. Manitowoc County is at 24%, 23.8%. Milwaukee County, like I said, is good. There are only 54 new cases today in Milwaukee County, which is really small for Milwaukee County. Only 6.4% positive, which is still higher than you'd want, but it's better than what the state's doing. Oconto County looks like 10 new cases, sorry. And 125% positive tests. They're reporting 8 tests and 10 positive results, which either means there were a whole bunch of negative tests that they didn't report, or at least two of those positive results actually came in yesterday or the day before, and they're just getting reported today. Either of those is possible. Portage County, 27.5%. Walworth County is listed at over 100% as well. Waupaca County is 137%. So obviously these are some of these are just this one day of data where one or two results either way can really throw off a percentage on a specific county when you're talking about 10 or 12 cases. So these numbers will get smoothed out as the data gets updated and it gets caught up. But you see these kind of things on like a holiday weekend, sometimes in some of these local counties. But again, those are a couple of cases, a couple of tests really throw those numbers off. The those one or two cases, one or two tests aren't going to throw the statewide numbers off significantly. So that, I'm still confident that 10.4%, and I mean that the statewide has today. I'm even more confident in the 7-day 11% average. Hospitalizations are still good, just up slightly to 289 today. That's 3 more than yesterday, 1 fewer than a week ago. 91 of those are in ICUs, that's all pretty good. A lot of the folks that are getting sick are the steep increase in cases that we've seen in the past week are either, most of them are, a lot of them, at least in Dane County, more than half are in young people who are less vulnerable and who don't get as sick typically. So it's not surprising that there isn't a corresponding spike in hospitalizations, but also it takes a couple weeks for somebody to get sick enough to have to be put in the hospital. So if you're testing a lot of people who aren't yet sick, and they test positive, and then they get sick, then they go to the hospital. So we might see a slight increase in hospitalizations in a week or so from now. Okay, so let's talk about University of Wisconsin. A couple of things about University of Wisconsin. The first thing that is a little frustrating, and I get the sense that Public Health Madison-Dade County is also a little bit frustrated with this, although I can't speak for them, but that the University of Wisconsin has a data dashboard, but their data doesn't really line up with the state or the Public Health Madison-Dade County data. So it's really difficult to assess how many of any particular day's new cases are attributable to the University of Wisconsin. Dane County today reported 89 new cases. The state reported that Dane County had 90 new cases, there's always a slight discrepancy between those two of just a couple, because it's just a question of like what time of day you pull the data. The University of Wisconsin today reports 148 new cases. But the thing is that they're not reporting that there was 148 positive tests processed today. What they're saying is basically that we have 148 more positive tests than we had yesterday, several of which were done Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we don't know how those fit into, and we don't know when the county reported those. So it's entirely possible that there was 13 cases that were tested positive UW, that were reported by Dane County, reported by the state, but then not reported by the University of Wisconsin. Or it's also possible that the 148 cases that were reported by UW today will be included in the data for Dane County tomorrow. It's just really the way they have it reported. They're just so focused on their own numbers that it's really difficult to fit it in with the county and the state. Which, when we're trying to say, X percentage of new cases at UW, like on Friday, I think it was, maybe Saturday, that the Public Health Madison-Dade County said, we have 160 something new cases, half of them are UW. Public Health Madison-Dade County was able to suss that out, but just looking at the data dashboards, we can't determine that. We can't see that clearly. So I'm hoping that they can align their data reporting more closely with Public Health Madison-Dade County, because University of Wisconsin obviously has its own issues with its own population. It's and in a way, I feel bad even complaining about it, because University of Wisconsin is responsible for taking care of its students and its staff. Right? It's not necessarily their job to make my job easier. You know what I mean? Except that University of Wisconsin is part of this community, and what happens on campus affects the rest of Madison. Because students don't stay on campus. Staff especially don't stay on campus. Graduate students certainly don't stay on campus. I'm a graduate student at University of Wisconsin. I'm never on campus. I don't go to campus right now at all. So what happens on campus is it just dissipates throughout the community. So from that perspective, it would be nice if their data was able to be more useful in the way we think about the data for the whole county. That said, their primary responsibility and a primary focus has to be on their own population. So I understand that. All that said, apparently things are bad on campus and getting worse. Their positive test rate is going up. It's still not as high as the states. So we know that University of Wisconsin, even with the things getting bad, is not really meaningfully impacting the entire statewide counts. It's definitely impacting Dane County. But like the state is not at 11% because of UW. Because UW is actually still like in the 4 and 5% range for their own population. So it's not driving up that positive test rate significantly. However, understanding that there are 40,000 undergraduates and another 10,000 graduate students plus all the students and all the faculty and staff, and the fact that they're trying to keep having classes in person, and they want people to continue to live on campus, they have to be even more strident, more cautious about the spread of the virus than other institutions. So, whatever the numbers are today, and however they relate to the university or the rest of Dane County, the university has called for undergraduates to shelter in place and only leave home to attend class and buy food and go to work and observe religious services, whatever. So basically what they're saying is don't socialize. Saying everything else that you do normally you can continue to do, just don't socialize. Because that's where they feel it's happening is in the bars and parties, social settings. A couple other relatively minor changes. There'll be no more eating inside buildings. So like all the union and stuff and all the restaurants and all like the little, like, I don't know how many of you are familiar with UW, but there's cafes in almost every building, and like Granger Hall, the education building, there's a little cafe there. No more eating inside the buildings. All the restaurants on campus will be takeout only. Yet masks are required indoors at all times, and masks are required outdoors except when you're eating. So if you are sitting, excuse me, sitting on the terrace eating lunch, you can take your mask off. Other than that, you have to have your mask on. And this, I should say, this is not permanent. This is 2 weeks. They're saying this from now till September 21st. And I think with the hope that it'll slow the spread. September 28th, I am told, is the last day that they can issue refunds. So there's some suspicion that they're trying to hold on for that long and then switch to all virtual learning so that they don't have to give refunds, which is understandable, which sounds terrible, but is understandable considering their current funding situation. They don't get the state funding that they used to get. Okay, I think that's mostly what I have. Oh, one other thing I'll mention, for those outside of Madison, UW Eau Claire doesn't seem to have a large number of cases, but they had 6 students test positive in a residence hall, only 6. And they locked down 6 wings of residence halls. So there are 6 residence hall wings that are currently quarantined, and they're doing classes online from within their dorm rooms. I can't imagine spending like all your time in a dorm room, but they're delivering food to them. They're just saying, okay, you have a case, you're all shut in for the next couple weeks, which I think is terrible for those students, but is the right call. Almost certainly the right call, because what will happen is everybody on that wing is going to get sick, at least half, right? And they'll be okay because they're going to be there. Like they'll get through it, but they're not going to spread it anymore, right? Which is that's the big concern. Um, okay, I have not at all paid attention to your comments, so I'm just gonna look and see if you have any questions here. I see um, a lot of agreement that the campus should just close. Um, Emily, I'd be interested to hear more from you. Emily Ham, I had my request to teach undergraduate remotely denied by UW. If you want to direct message us, I would love to talk to you about that. I'm curious what the justification or rationale was for that. One other thing I'll mention is that we did a new map. We've been doing our coronavirus map for Dane County every Thursday for the past couple of months, and the campus neighborhoods have shot up so quickly over the past week that we actually decided to do a new map just today, just because the numbers are so crazy near campus. So if you go, it's on the website right now, Madison365.org. And it's just the last 2 weeks. What we've been doing is we've been showing you a 4-week, the difference between cases over a 4-week period. And this week today we just did it with 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, you can see how many cases in each neighborhood 2 weeks ago and how many cases today. And if you click those along the south side of Lake Mendota, you can see those increases are big, are like 80% increases from neighborhoods that already had a lot of cases. So, can they eat in their dorm rooms? Corey asks. That's a great question. The indication I saw, which was not part of the official announcement, was that you couldn't eat in buildings. And I think that means restaurants. I would imagine that dorm rooms would probably be okay just because it's not a public setting. I think it's not so much eating, it's sitting inside without a mask on. And I think sitting inside your dorm room without a mask on is probably okay. So eating in your dorm would probably be okay, I would imagine. That's my guess. Right, Bobby. Bobby says, unfortunately, they can't force the off-campus students to shelter in place. You're right. That was my question: is this enforceable? Lockdown. I put lockdown in because that's an easy way to say it, but it's really not. It's a strong suggestion. And basically, the campus has canceled all social activities, and basically they're going to close the union at 5:00 today. They're going to close a lot of stuff that happens on campus that's not academic. And it's and I don't know if they've been in consultation with campus area bars to say please don't let students in or anything like that. But it's really hard to enforce. Now they did quarantine the fraternities and sororities and threatened very big sanctions if those students don't comply with that quarantine, as in like suspension and $10,000 fine kind of things. Will they be able to do that for other students? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they want to. They're basically strongly encouraging people not to socialize. We will see how that goes. Paula, does fraternity and sorority rush end? I mean, I don't know that they can. I don't know that the university can unilaterally end it, but they could certainly call that a social activity that they don't want to have happen. Does that make sense? Is the catering department still doing events? I don't think so. It sounds to me, the way I read it is basically events on campus are canceled for the next 2 weeks. That's the way I read it, and therefore the catering department is not going to be catering those events. I don't think that's my reading of it. Bobby asked, the bars are closed, aren't they? No, they are not. They were closed a while ago. Here's the thing about Dane County orders. Back in March, we closed the bars. In July, June, was it late June? That we, oh no, I'm sorry. Oh boy, this has been a long time. It was late May that we moved to phase 1 of the forward Dane reopening plan, which allowed some businesses to open at 25% capacity. Then in June, we moved to phase 2, which allowed bars to open, but you couldn't, which basically allowed bars to open with limited capacity. Then in July, we moved back to sort of pre-phase 1, but we never went all the way back. We never closed the bars again. We went backward in terms of indoor capacity. We went up to 50% and then back to 25%. And so now, like, bars are open, but you're not allowed to stand at the bar. You got to sit at a table with members of your household, and there's absolutely no way to enforce that. And it seems to be the case that downtown campus area bars are not doing that. So bars are open, bars are being patronized. I think the idea here in this lockdown is, please don't go to bars. I think that's basically what the chancellor's saying. Kathy asked, no weddings. No, I don't think there were any weddings on campus anyway. Remember, Kathy, this is only a 2-week period, so they're not canceling every wedding that they have booked. But my understanding is that all events on campus are canceled, and they weren't having big events at the Union and stuff. When you say weddings, you're talking about the Memorial Union is where weddings happen on campus for the most part. And those weren't happening right now anyway. So we're talking mostly about smaller social gatherings, social events that are being canceled now for the next 2 weeks, and just for the next 2 weeks. Now, if as Lori says, the chancellor's messing around, if this doesn't work over the next 2 weeks, the campus will shut down for the fall. There are some who speculate that that's the goal anyway, that they're going to shut down the campus, that they have to. But they can't do that until September 28th, because after September 28th, they don't have to give refunds for housing and tuition. So the idea is that they're just using this lockdown strategy to get by as long as they can, and then shut it down, go to virtual learning, and when they don't have to give refunds, and therefore they wouldn't suffer the financial implications as harshly. I don't know if that's really true or not. I mean, it's kind of conspiracy theory-ish, but it is true that if they can hold on until September 28th, they could go all virtual without giving refunds and without taking as bad of a hit financially. And I understand, like I said, it seems nefarious to do that, but it seems to be driven by money. But that's kind of the fact of the situation. The legislature has not funded UW very well. There's a lot of their state funding has been cut. They do rely on tuition more than they used to. They rely on housing income more than they used to. And there are thousands upon thousands of people who work there, who were furloughed, were collecting unemployment, who were collecting the federal $600 unemployment over the summer, and who would probably, if it had to shut down and go entirely virtual, there are thousands of people who would simply be laid off. And that would have a massive impact on the Madison economy too. So I'm not making a case one way or the other. I'm just saying that would be implications. So I understand where they're coming from. Bobby, I don't think on-campus kids are quarantining either. They're not quarantined. Bobby says, I wish they forced the off-campus kids to quarantine in the special dorms as they do for the dorm kids. No way are those kids quarantining. That's not. Oh, do you mean kids? Okay. I think you were referring to students on campus who live on campus who've been tested, who then are quarantined on campus. Even kids who live on campus can choose to quarantine off campus. Even kids who live in the dorms, I keep saying kids, even students, young adults. When you're my age, you can call them kids, right? I have kids of that age. When they're students on campus, they can choose to quarantine off campus and they can go home. A lot of them have decided to go home to quarantine. Who knows where home is? Home could be, Rhineland or Milwaukee or Verona or Dubuque. And so that you have a student on campus who's tested positive, who says, I'm going to go home to quarantine, and takes the virus with them home to their family. I don't know. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me, but I understand it. Shane asks, have we heard any more about Big Ten football? No, I have not. I will be absolutely shocked if there is any Big Ten football this season. I know there's some college football happening starting this weekend even. NFL starts next weekend. I think at least the campuses that we're talking about, Iowa, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, just have so much else on their plate to try to just limp through this semester. To try to put football on top of that would be bonkers. Okay. That is mostly what I have for you today. One other thing I'll mention, Kamala Harris is in Milwaukee today. So they did pool reporting for that, which means that they basically allowed one reporter to go along on the trip, and then that reporter is providing the rest of us with updates and quotes and stuff. So I'm going to write that up. We'll have that up tomorrow morning. She did meet with the family of Jacob Blake. She met with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers over there for Labor Day. And she's having a Black Business Owners Roundtable this afternoon. I think that might be wrapped up already. But anyway, we'll get the scoop on that and hopefully get some photos as well, and we'll have that up for the morning. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. Have a good evening, and we will see you again tomorrow.